That was Marty Smith's. So there have been all kinds of conversations going on around the room, and this is just an opportunity to bring them all together and to ask and just figure out what we all want to talk about in this particular context. When we started out with this event, it was going to be called the Kensington Drum. And there was a moment in the process where that suddenly morphed into the drum years, which were in 1989 to 2000. And as I said in that little thing, and I'll just repeat it, because it's not about the drum, it's about what the drum was about.
Yeah.
And what it was about was the things that make this community, which was sometimes going at each other, sometimes celebrating who we are, and sometimes just making damn sure from a political perspective, which was my deep love, that the people in government knew what we were saying about them. And we did that with things like George Brown College closing down in the market, opposing the Scarborough-style LRT, getting the hospital to close its incinerator. But we just had a hell of a lot of fun on the way because the voices in this multi-partisan, not non-partisan, little neighborhood rag were of every stripe. And we let people say what they wanted to say, and if necessary, we apologized. And the one time in the whole 12 years that the city legal department sent us a letter, about what they might do, we just published their letter in its entirety. And that was the end of it. So it led a charm.
What was it about?
Oh, it was about a labor dispute at Cecil Center where the person who was in trouble got in touch with one of the people who was doing the drum, and he totally sympathized with that individual, and we just published the one side of the story. And it was really unfair, and one-sided, and very hurtful to the person who was the executive director there, who has since forgiven us because she's a homework reader, and it went away. It went away. So what do people want to know?
How did you get it started?
How?
Like, how did it come about?
It came about because we wanted to honor and to celebrate the work that Ida Carnevale was doing with the Kensington Carnival in the park. And this was the first year for the Festival of Lights, which is now the solstice celebration. And Gabi was fire-breathing at the very beginning for Ida, and Gabi is now running Red Pepper with Sean. And I should say that this particular event that we're at, this exhibition that the drum is getting to do, is part of a 5-week countdown to the 35th annual Festival of Lights, which is therefore coincidentally, not coincidentally, the 35th anniversary of the first publication of the drum. How we got it started was a huge motive was, this is a real community, neighborhood. And then there was that kind of stuff. The Scarborough LRT to feed the Olympic Village on the railway lands for the 1996
Yeah.
Olympics.
bid,
Yeah.
the one,
Olympics, yeah.
the one that Toronto was up against Coca-Cola for. And we lost. But that was huge because we had Friends of Spadina coalition all the way up and down the avenue. I made my first ever political speech in Canada at Cecil Centre, where I talked about how we were a community, not a corridor. And communities, the main street is like the windpipe that breathes life into the lungs of the neighborhoods around it. And you don't breathe in order to blow the air out of your ass. That made me famous for a day. Anyway, so that's what got us going. But what made it happen was that we made a little 8.5 by 11 fold up of the thing. It's always had a directory in the middle of it with a map, and was supported by the merchant community from the first day. And we got 15 people to agree to put their names into the little 8.5 by 11 folded version that they had already committed $20 towards the printer. And then we signed up another, I think 30 or something, and that was enough for the first print boom. And we just went on after that. Is that answer?
Yeah.
And so this 5-week countdown, lots more to come, historical society, just lovely stuff, the kind of stuff that makes me really happy, because it's an opportunity for people to...
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Can you talk about your publishing process that you and Jack did? Because I'd heard stories about your 4 a.m. rising in the morn to work on the drum while raising your family in Kensington Market. Is that true?
I think it was sometimes just staying awake at 4 o'clock in the morning. We had another job at the time, which was press clipping.
It's a confluence. Sorry to interrupt.
Confluence?
A confluence, man.
Yes, sure.
Yeah,
please.
yeah. I'm his not his eldest, but his eldest son. And it's absolutely true that they were awake 5 days a week at 4 a.m. But in fact, they were not working on the drum during those hours. They were working on something that wouldn't exist now, which was a News Express service. So
News Express.
I remember going with them down to the plant to pick up the Globe and Mail at 12:30 when the next day's paper was published. And so him as king speed reader, they'd read through the entire newspaper.
Wow.
They pull out all the search terms, the same way now you get up and make an RSS feed or something like that. For all of that stuff, they did that manually. They got up at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Wow.
then they read through all 3 major papers, so Star, Globe, Post, whatever was around at the time, and then glued them onto fax sheets and faxed them off to New Jersey.
Ooh.
And finished that, tried to finish that job in time to get us off to school in the morning.
Yeah.
So that by the time we were off to school, then he could turn his attention to this. So this mythology of these endless 4 a.m.s are absolutely true. But not only were they in service of this and what he was doing, and in service of maintaining our family, but also what they were doing was also connected to this obsessive digestion of news and everything else, right? So if you ever needed credentials for should you be trusting a local news source, well, I don't know, did they read all 3 national publications this morning, right? Right? Anyway, sorry for interrupting, I didn't mean to at all, I just thought I would give that clarification.
And Jack was there, all doing the same.
And all we got was a bunch of busted Dells and some souvenir umbrellas. So,
They were lovely umbrellas.
great umbrellas, I'm not gonna...
Beautiful umbrellas.
And Jack was there, though,
Yep.
Yeah, two of them together.
We did sometimes
Yeah.
just stay up all night to finish the drum because
Yeah.
it had to be at the printer by 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we weren't going to be out on time, and the printer at the time was on Advance Road, which is Islington, south of Bloor Street.
Yeah.
So we did have to wait for the subway to open. And it was before the days when you could send digital files to a printer. So everything was on
Wax flats.
waxed using pressure sensitive adhesive wax,
Yeah.
and cut and pasted and all stuck down on the
Aside
big
from
flats
their
like this, so it was 4 pages to a sheet. And they went in a big box, and then you had to carry it like you were carrying a cake all the way to Etobicoke.
Wow. Quarterly now, quarterly. It was 4 times a year, the drum.
No, the drum was monthly.
Monthly.
Drum was monthly.
It was
For a while.
monthly except when we failed to do so, you know?
Yes, yes, yes.
It was the intention. And we just and the wonderful thing was, as soon as it started going through people's doors, people just assumed the right to contribute. And it was just a wonderful free-for-all. Except on the political stuff where we sunk our teeth into, this is a fight. The city's going to cut back garbage collection from 3 days a week to 1 day a week. Okay, well, our city councillor wants to get re-elected. Let's see how to fix that. You know? But at the level of the columns in the magazine, the things people wrote about, someone called Hal Conroy showed up at the door. He'd been famous decades before for rowing across the Atlantic. And by then Hal was like this, and every time he used the word processor, we'd have to reboot it. But Hal said, I want to do a column on boating for seniors. So we had a column in the drum about boating for seniors. That's just one example.
Because he lived in a boat in the harbor
Yeah.
in the winter.
No, but more importantly, he lived in Kensington, had an opinion,
Yeah.
and there was a place to publish it.
Yeah. And we always said, the drum is multi-partisan. We have the right to reject anything.
Awesome.
And that was kind of what we tried to do. We tried to avoid hate, however it manifested itself, because it's just too tiring.
Yeah.
What else?
The working group, Kensington Market Working Group.
Yes.
When did that originate? Because I'm seeing that across in the cover of it.
Kensington Market Working Group. Oh, there's so many. Which one was the Kensington Market Working
I don't
Group?
know the first of
I
it.
thought that was the before it came out.
Predates came
Yeah.
out.
Oh,
Was it?
before that, the very first one, and those were heady days, we managed to get something called the Kensington Market Task Force as a subcommittee of the planning department. So the city actually had to provide the services of the clerk's office, and as a subcommittee we could call anybody, and they had to come because it was like a city committee. And oh God, we had a wonderful time. Some of it was wild and crazy, but some of it was really interesting. I remember one where we decided that we thought there was too much duplication unacknowledged duplication of service among all the community agencies, the hospital, the doctor's hospital, Scadding, St. Stephen's, University Settlement House. So we said, we want to talk to all these people. We want them to come and explain why there shouldn't be more cooperation. And they all showed up in city council chambers. And we got to be, we royal plural, no us collectively, we got to be so rude to the CEO of the Toronto Western Hospital, for example. But it had an impact because they actually tried a little bit harder, and they had to define what they were doing that was different from what other people were doing. And that task force came up with a report on the East Market, and I mean, it existed for a while. And then at a certain point, they said, no, man, this task force is supposed to do a task. And you guys just want to go on and on and on and on. So no more clerk's office, no more. And then that turned into the Kensington Market Working Group, but without city support, which is as it should have been. In some of these magazines, you can see the proceedings and the recommendations of the Kensington Market Task Force. And what else? Anything anyone wants to talk about?
Well, first of all, nobody needs to feel like they're shuffling in silence. So if anybody's coming in and has any questions or anything else that they want to float right off the top. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of like playing ad hoc moderator here at the top. Welcome to anybody who's just walked in.
Thank you.
I think we've talked a little bit about some of the context of the history of the publishing and some of the or lack thereof. Well, we'll leave it at that. Some of those things. The floor is absolutely wide open. We're very, very early here, and there's all kinds of questions that can be asked. In lieu of any other questions, something that I just float maybe to
I have a
for other.
Great.
Great. Shut me up. I love it. Thank you. Please, the floor is yours.
So my question is, it's not a question to you actually. It's a question to the group, because I notice here that there is a majority of young people, certainly people that for whom 35 years is not the past. So I'm just curious as to what wave brought them here today.
Yeah.
What brought the young people here?
Everyone has to speak for themselves.
What brought them here and why are you staying?
What brought the smartphone generations to an exhibition about printed publication? Is that sort of what you were?
Well, generally, everyone has their own reasons.
I'm just trying to
I'm just
find it.
curious what,
Yeah, that's lovely.
I'm 40
It's a
years
great
old.
question.
What's that?
I said I'm 40.
Oh, so you were 5, he was 5, no, he was even 5.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see there's an ad in this paper for my apartment used to be the restaurant, the Vanifa Lao Thai restaurant.
Oh, that's such a good
Anyone had like a picture of it when it was actually the restaurant, that'd be cool to see. And then we'll track that down.
So is that like that directly, that material, like a one-to-one, like, that's really cool.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
That was our apartment. It was like that restaurant, and then before that it was like a slaughterhouse, I think, or something.
I mean, sounds right.
Yeah.
A basement slaughterhouse?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, for pigs specifically.
Okay.
So that abattoir, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I work at the Land Trust and helped organize the festival, so that's what brought me here. But I'm actually, it's been such a revelation and joy to be a part of all these intergenerational conversations. And something like the drum, I think I barely heard about, and definitely had never seen an issue. And I learned so much about so many worlds and people and stories that I had no idea existed, and had no idea what I learned about in my lifetime. And it's been really nice.
I have a question about the inversion of the beginning. So we talked about the beginning. What was the condition or the situation that wrapped it up? Why the drum ended?
Oh, why the drum end? Oh.
Well, that's That's a, do you want to take the transitional angle or the circumstantial angle or both?
Both. Like, what was going on was there some, what was the vibe in the market like, where the drum either wasn't needed anymore, or it had run its course and then made sense to wrap it up? I'm just curious.
The very furthest one in that corner on that wall was the very last issue of the drum. The page we've chosen to put underneath it was the two issues in the community where I believe the community was more divided than any other time over the 35 years. And the two stories on that page were St. Stephen's Community House moving its corner drop-in to what had been the Tivoli Billiards on Augusta Avenue. And the other story was about St. Clair's opening their not-for-profit housing on Leonard, when they actually added to what had previously been an office building and turned it into, which we supported because it was actually putting a stop to hospital encroachment on the residential side of the street. And at the time, you build up enemies over time, and sometimes enemies turn into factions of one kind or another, and there were one or two very passionate individuals in the market who went up and down through the market about the corner drop-in, about how the drum doesn't care about your business, and then showed up at the meeting of the Kensington Community Association, which was an attempt to end the Kensington Market Businessman's Association, Kensington Residents Association, divide and come up with a unified forum, and showed up the way Kensington used to show up at City Hall, you know, with 300 people to make a loud noise, and they showed up with maybe 45 people and booted out everybody took over the community association. And on the other hand, there was one individual who did the same thing residentially about the St. Clair's. Kensington Drum doesn't care about the residences they're bringing in, and you know the poison and the hate that goes on in that regard. The kind of homeowner, homeless divide, and managed to secure dozens and hundreds of signatures that this, you know, but specifically naming the people at the drum as being the ones who were, you know, putting this through because we were going to get condos in the Kensington lofts. I mean, just real, I don't want to name the people.
Yes.
There's no reason to do that. And Jack, what do you think? I think we just said...
Well, there was something else going on, which
Yeah.
is that the Kensington Market Drum had an ongoing column about music, about concert music.
That's the part that I was gonna try to lead you into, is that enormous stack of magazines on that cart right there is the second half to that answer, which is what happened to the Kensington Market Drum is that it evolved into Whole Note Magazine.
So there was an overlap of
So there's a whole chapter that you guys...
Five-year overlap.
Yep.
From beginning to end, a 5-year overlap, but the column in the Kensington Market Drum started to eat the Kensington Market Drum from the inside out. And we had prospective advertisers who were saying things like, well, we could pay money for this, but it's too local. If you were promoting our concerts to a bigger demographic, we would pay good money to advertise.
Yeah.
And that was the point at which we decided we needed to spin what was then Pulse off into its own publication.
Pulse was the name of the article.
Pulse
That was the name of the
Pulse
column.
was the name of the column, and then the name of the magazine, until there was litigation, cease and desist from now.
Found in these volumes, yeah?
I think I read once, or maybe that didn't some ethnographic lab at U of T digitize some of this material?
The ethnography lab, in cooperation with the Whole Note, one inspired graduate student, and it was Sigrid Faeser, just found the drum in the library and said, we've got to digitize this. And Whole Note donated office space for graduate students to come and the expertise to actually turn it into flip-through PDF format. The ethnography lab hosted it on the U of T anthropology department website for about 3 years.
So in essence, like 66 PDFs each edition.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then the way it worked was that the platform it was hosted on, which is actually based in Switzerland, it's called Yampu. It's where we have all 30 years of the Whole Note as well on that platform. The way they work is if somebody complains about content, then they get in touch and say somebody has complained about something. And that's my cartoon, or you've still got that slanderous piece about who knows what. They had one complaint. The ethnography lab was a busy place at a big institution. They didn't respond, and it was taken down.
Do you have access to all those files?
So I negotiated with them to give us back all of the PDFs,
Okay.
and we just completed a week ago reposting all of it. So if you use the QR code that's on the wall above that tablet, you can take away all issues of the Kensington Drum.
So they're
Uncensored.
They're on
Yeah.
the web right now.
Wow.
They're on the web right now, and they're also downloadable as PDFs.
So
in that context.
I asked that in relationship to your comment. So what occurs to me that in the present, and when you look at some of the editions, you see the common types of events or music or culture and all these things. If there were searchable terms connected to each of these PDFs, so that someone went, I'd love to know the history of chefs in Kensington,
Yeah.
it would tag into some of those files, and now you could trip back. Or if someone went, when has there been this dispute over a building and access for tenants to get access to it?
Yeah.
That there could be tagged in, oh, go back to this, and then all of a sudden now someone in the present would learn from the past, or see the patterns, what was done right, what was done wrong.
Very definitely.
It's a hassle that you might be able to get another
There
intern.
are two avenues for doing that. One is that OCR searching has come so far along since that day, that there is actually right built into this, a search icon where you can type in something
Term, yeah.
per issue.
Per
Not over
issue,
the
so
whole
not over the
archive,
collected
but
66.
within the issue you can type in a term or a name, or you can type in Ida Carnevale and it will find Ida in that issue. The other thing, and this ties in directly to what you were just saying, is that the platform makes provision for 250 words description of each issue. In the Whole Note we say, this time there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this. But you can use it basically to hashtag
Tons of
key
keywords.
terms, keywords. And that is a project for some interested student to be able, or some interested individual, let's not say student, someone thirsty for knowledge, to be able to do that work and
Make it all
actually
searchable.
create that. And then once you've done that, that gives you access to being able, because then Google will find that for you in many issues of it, not just in the one that you founded. Marlo, what?
I think this ties into the future part of it. There is ChatGPT and also open source type of ChatGPT where you can create a little universe where you can just upload all the PDFs and the brain basically would just contain all the knowledge in there without any sort of extra like search thing. You can just create like what happens in the year of 1999.
And once the festival's over, you're going to come and work with
Yeah,
us.
so exactly. So there's a lot of
Yes.
discussions. Just to jump in for 1 second, there's a lot of discussions that some of them have happened in various degrees or another about. First of all, the Whole Note, the Whole Note magazine. This is a little bit of a jump, but Whole Note with its now separate from the Drum magazine, Whole Note's listing designation, its history of listings, and moving towards being a nonprofit in listings, part of it, and all that stuff, and how the relationship between this massive database that Whole Note has built musically and culturally over the last 20-something years, as well as this massive cultural database we have at the Drum. What you raised is an incredibly interesting and important question, and something that me, as his eldest son, I'm annoying the hell out of him with, any chance I get, talking about where these intersections are between human curation and what involvement there is or isn't with large language models. Let's not call it AI, it's not, but it's AI. They'll call it AI, we'll call it AI. But with large language models and exactly what you were describing, there's a huge intersection here, and this is unsolicited from him, and he can rebuke me on this. But my take would be from the last week and from the level of interest and human interest and involvement just in this exhibition, what we've been doing here, that I think that there's enough human interest and human energy and human intelligence that's really eager to apply ourselves and itself to this stuff that, well, there's definitely places for stuff like LMs, like large language models, to ease the workflow and all kinds of stuff, that really what this whole thing for me is coming back to the core is what the Drum was. And well, there was already the Yellow Pages. What's the difference between the Yellow Pages and the Yellow Pages was like the large language model, and the Drum was this room of people. So there's definitely space for both, and space for both to interact.
The key is open source. It's not
Yes,
affiliated.
of course, yeah. Well, open source, hey, it's all on the walls, you guys can take it home if you want. Anyway, that's my interjection as the person who sort of helped conceptualize the gallery, and was a kid when this newspaper was happening, and has sort of seen it come and go and been here through the whole process, and grew up with the internet, and yeah, that's me, delivering it at about 3 years old, and so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to absolutely steamroll the conversation, but what you said was just so positively triggering to me in terms of where the conversation needs to go with what do we do with merchants in Kensington? How do we have the map? How does everybody sell themselves? How does this interaction happen? But how does it happen on this organic community level? And where does stuff like LLMs fall in with that? And then where is that stuff potentially rubbing up against the organic nature of all this stuff? So thank you for that jumping off point. I'm so sorry. I will, that's it. I think that's it for me.
It's interesting to think about like future part of it, and I like tying everything past, present, futures. It's like, and this question makes sense to everyone here. What advice or affirmation would you give to your 35-year-old self if you were to travel back in time?
I'm 36, I'm exactly half his age.
Both
So-
graduates.
What's he gonna say to me?
No, to yourself, sorry, not to yourself.
So
Or just
what would you
in
say to
general.
your 36-year-old self now?
What would I say to my
35.
36-year-old self?
35.
35-year-old self?
just HP.
Get a job.
No, bet on 93, that was the outlier.
Oh, that's funny. So yes, we're thinking about how does one apply this same energy. How does somebody else apply that same energy? Because I ain't gonna be 36 again. I've already ruled it out. I'm not gonna be a fireman either when I grow up. So, but this is lovely. Maybe in the guest book. Turn to the back of the guest book, and if you want to be part of a conversation about, the once and future drum, just say, yeah, count me in, and leave an email address or something, and we'll see where we can go. There's all kinds of wonderful data there. A map every month with the people who bought in becomes a map over time where you can see what happened, what trends there were. There was a brief period of time where there were 28 pot shops in the markets, and now it's gone back to kind of
A mere dozen.
exactly.
But there was also a time when there were 7 fish stores.
Yeah.
With 4 or 5 butchers. Yeah.
7 fish
Five-
stores,
five
and
bakeries.
I'm pretty sure there's still at least 41 places to get tacos. So,
Yeah. What else?
I have one
Maybe,
more question.
One more question.
And it's because I have a recollection when we interviewed you.
Yeah.
You told me a story, and I'm hoping I'm accurate, my brain's accurate. And I'm going to put some context on it. So
Okay.
I'm a fan of William Lyon Mackenzie, who nobody knows who he is.
William Lyon
Who's-
Mackenzie or William Lyon Mackenzie
William
King?
Lyon Mackenzie, the first mayor of Toronto.
Uh,
He was a newspaper publisher, and he had a newspaper called The Advocate, where he kicked the butt of the power brokers.
The
of
Types
Toronto.
trial.
Yeah, but the thing that's interesting in reading about this guy, and John Sewell, our former mayor, wrote a biography on him that was really interesting. Sewell had this, or in his research and also in his theory, is William Lyon Mackenzie ran away from Scotland when he came here. And he had been trained in the newspaper business around and at the time of the democratic movement in Scotland that was put down by the English. And they thought this guy was going to be thrown in jail, and he got on a boat and came here and opened a newspaper to be that democratic voice, because this was where he was and this is what he was about. But so back to you, I remember when we interviewed you, you had mentioned your inspiration of a newspaper in South Africa, I believe called The Drum.
Yes.
So tell us about that
Well,
paper.
there's a little, I put a little note on the wall.
Right behind me.
But,
That's hilarious. Okay, so talk about that.
I would have something to say about that.
Giovanni's wearing a
Wearing
shirt.
a t-shirt on the South African drum.
Drum.
South African drum t-shirt.
Wow.
In the early years.
Yo, what other room could bring together someone with intimate knowledge of Lyon Mackenzie King's Types trial, and they've almost got the last of it out
Do you
in
want
Ontario.
to talk about that?
Elliot, this is fantastic.
Who owned land, farmland, tracts of land. There was one in Johannesburg where they left the land as freehold to the people who had worked on the land. And in both cases, they named the land, they named the place after their wives. And this was a place called Sophia Town. There's another one closer to the Vaal River that separates the deltas called Everton. And anyway, Sophia Town was the only place in apartheid Witwatersrand around Gold and Johannesburg where black people were able to own freehold land. and it became a hive of cultural activity. Many of South Africa's greatest writers, and they put together this publication that was called The Drum, which eventually became, it eventually turned into something else, almost Africa-wide, but at that time it was completely political. And at a certain moment, so that was, it was a community that made its own rules, and a community that had its own voice. And it was then in the 60s, it was bulldozed, and a suburb was put in place called Triumph, which meant triumph, which was like worker housing for, mostly for white people working on the railways. And it has revived since then. But so when I came here, there was something about that idea of a community built on essentially breaking the law, because Kensington Market was residential, and every commercial enterprise in the market was illegal until in the 60s they basically revised the official plan to say, oh well, we can't get rid of it, but it doesn't have any of the amenities that a commercial neighbor, no back lanes, like the loading dock for the printer that we had, you know. So there was just something in my own past and something that I knew I could very easily forget about retaining that, and the name Drum just resonated with that, not with really great aspirations, but just as a little keep honest reminder as to what this thing was for.
Yeah, I was gonna ask exactly how you picked that name that you just answered.
Thank you so much for asking, because he hadn't really brought up that
Yeah.
part of the lineage and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I didn't bring it up. I was like, I'm piggybacking on the
No,
other
it's
thing.
just, it came up naturally, you gave me, I'm sort of playing like a little like a corner moderator. I like just pop up when I think it might help. And I just felt that, and that was something that he hadn't really discussed
really
as part of
interesting,
the history of this publication. And I think that's important, is that, you know, and also his parents, he comes from people that were politically minded in the right sense in South Africa, and he came from those people, and so all that stuff. When he brought it up, I was like, I would like him to say something about that.
No, that
So
was
thank you,
really
Pat, for speaking on that.
Yeah.
That was good.
And I recently learned, so I'm Italian, my wife's South African, so I spent a little time there. And I recently learned that we have a maybe third grade uncle that used to write for the Drum, and every time we go to our auntie's house, they remind us of you're wearing this t-shirt, your uncle was writing in that newspaper. It's just like random connections. When I bought this t-shirt, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
And where did you buy it?
I bought it in Johannesburg.
Oh.
There's a shop that just sells the African Drum merchandise. That just like, it's a huge shop.
So it's continues, does it?
It does, but it's turned into
It's online, right?
like a, you know,
Yeah.
the kind of magazine that you get at the counter
Yeah.
at the supermarket
Oh.
on your way
What a
out.
pity.
It's no longer what it was, where they had Gestempner machines and they did their magazine that way. If they had one. Hey folks, are we want to?
Any more questions? Come
I
on.
want to ask
Now the
how
table's
you
opening up.
I do. I want to ask how you and Jack met, please.
Leonard Melfi Bird Bath. It's a play.
We did a play together.
That and he
Jack, you could answer that question.
that and he bought a 1976 Yamaha classical acoustic guitar to learn a Leonard Cohen song to play for her. So that's what happened apparently at one point. But.
We did a play together.
Okay.
Simple answer.
Okay.
There was a company called the Mercury
Mercury Theater at the Poor Alex.
Yes.
Okay.
And the first time I met Jack was at the Boulevard Cafe,
Yeah.
and recently back from theater school, and this was late night theater at the Poor Alex. It started at 11, and the slogan was out by midnight or your money back. So there was a lot of actors, and there were two of them, Jack and a friend, who wanted to do this play together, and somebody had misled them into thinking that I had theater directing chops. So I played the role just like I played the role of the publisher of the whole. So that's how we met. It was great.
What theater school?
Huh?
What theater school are you in?
Not me.
And